Hey, you guys, and welcome to another episode of Millennial POV Podcast. I'm your girl, Maisha Lachey.
And I'm DJ Dre Lauren.
What's up? How you been?
Good. I'm good. Busy, but good. How about you?
Same, honestly. And it's like, I feel like time is going so fast. We're already in summer, technically. So, yeah, I'm just like, oh, time is going fast. But yeah, I'm looking a mess today, y'all, if whoever's watching it. But it has been a day of projects at work and stuff. But you want to go ahead and start? What are we? First of all, let's catch up. What's been going on in the world, real quick, that's been catching your attention?
I mean, it's been a lot of stuff. Honestly, I think one of the main things is the whole like Kendrick Lamar Drake thing going on. I see that a lot on social media. Um, Obviously, a lot of people are talking about sports. You got the NBA playoffs going on.
Yes,
Um, you got this whole like Trump trial going on. So it's a lot of stuff kind
bro.
of going
It's
on.
a lot. Is yeah, we real hot out here this summer. We started in real strong, to say the least. You went again to the concert in Vegas, right?
Yeah, I attempted to.
Right.
Yeah,
Tell the viewers about that.
Yeah, we're going to the Lovers and Friends Festival. It's a festival that they've had in Vegas the last 2 years. It's like the most unbelievable-ist lineups of throw. It's basically a throwback festival, and
Mhm.
so this year we were planning to go. It was going to be our third year. The lineup was amazing,
Why y'all
and
only went once? Y'all went twice already?
yeah, with the last 2 years,
Oh
yeah,
wow, I missed it. Okay.
and
Yeah.
so. This year, we got in Vegas, whatever, and then the night before they ended up canceling it because of the weather. It was supposed to be like really, really windy, and so they ended up canceling it. So definitely was not happy about that. But obviously, you understand that it's all for safety and stuff. So I get it.
Yeah. And at least you were in Vegas, so then it wasn't like a waste of a trip. Really, you were still able to do something, right? Like, hopefully.
Yeah, no, yeah, we still definitely had a good time. We were with, it was like five of us, so we definitely
Oh,
still, made the most of it and had a nice little quick trip.
okay, all right. Well, good. At least it wasn't a waste of money. All right. So, what are
Yeah.
we talking about this week?
So we getting into this week. Um, how do you feel about keeping traditions, right? And how do you determine
Mhm.
how what traditions you keep and what things you change? Because now it's 2024 now, so we have a lot of new technology that our parents and our grandparents didn't have. We have a whole lot of more information, right? We get information from YouTube, from TikTok, right? We have all of these other things where you can go and you can search, hey, what are tips to do this thing, right? So we
Yeah.
have access to all of this other information that our parents and our grandparents didn't have at our ages. Um,
Mhm.
so when it comes to traditions and
Mhm.
those things like that your parents or your grandparents did in a certain type of way, how do you determine, oh, I'm gonna continue to do things this way, or no, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna do things this way because of this. You know what I
That,
mean?
yeah, that's a loaded question, but it's a good one. In general, because we recently had this conversation, my husband and I, and we were talking about just some things that like you said, were traditions for our family, or may not even tradition, just some things that we did right growing up. And we're like, we don't have to do that because we're older. And I think the difference is that, like you said, we do have technology that shows us different ways to do things. But I think also with technology or with social media, it's also opened our eyes up to other parts of the world to see. So, for example, which might step on some toes, but going to church. That will be, sorry if you hear that. That will be, in my opinion, a tradition, right? Or something I will say specifically my side of the family, because even yours, we went to church every single Sunday.
Hmm.
Me personally, and my husband, we don't really believe that we have to go to church in order to have a relationship with God. And we're also not labeling ourselves as in like saying we're Catholic, Baptist, you know, Muslim. We're not labeling ourselves. We're just saying that we're spiritual. And I think by saying that, we'll get a lot of people in the tizzy, especially the older generation, because that was normal back then, right? Like black people, we were Baptist, Pentecostal, whatever the case may be, and it was like grandma said you got to go to church, you get up and go to church. I know you and I, we would stay at the house sometimes when your grandma and your mom would go to church. If I stayed over the night before, we would stay at the house, but yeah, I think that's a tradition, something that we're kind of breaking because that's just from our understanding and our own beliefs as we're getting older. But we're not going to drift too far away from what we were raised as, like how we were raised and believe in. So,
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I think another one that I'm thinking about is like one thing specifically that's obviously maybe not generalized for us, like in our family that we did was, we used to have a Christmas party
oh,
every
yeah.
year, right? And we did that for years. We did that for years and years and years. And then I just because this is more of an activity thing, I'm gonna also add in. We also used to go to the remember we used to go to the pumpkin farm.
Oh my God, yeah. You remember Water Days?
So
Was it Water Days? Yeah.
yeah, so multiple activities that we would do as a family yearly. Um, and obviously we had great times doing it but we also have not done those things in a very long time, right?
But why
So
do you think that's the case? Is it us or is it just time? Like everybody's getting older.
I think it's a few different things. I'll say that specifically for the Christmas thing, we stopped hosting it because honestly it was more so of a space thing. We all got older, which means we all got bigger,
Yeah,
and
babies.
so that was part of it. But then yeah, I think part of it is can definitely be time. I think it could definitely be everyone's in different directions now. Everyone's an adult. You know what I'm saying? And so uh it's just maybe it hasn't been as big of a thought as much.
Mhm.
But let's kind of expand on that for a thing. Do you
Okay.
think it's really and I'm applying this to all activities, right? Do you think
Okay.
it's really a time thing? Do you think you know what I'm saying? Because again, if I said I could send out something right now and say, hey, Christmas party, December 11th, put it in
Yeah.
your calendar right now. You see what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
got 6, 7 months to plan for. So is it really a time thing?
Right. But aren't we going through that now with our family trip? We planned
Yeah.
this last year and we're
Yeah.
literally like 3 months out. We don't even have a house.
That's a little bit different though. That's a little
But
bit
no,
that's a
but
lot
it kind
different.
of goes with the same thing though. It gives you because think about it. There was a time that our family did actually have family reunions, but then once the older generation started dying away, it was kind of left into that next generation's hands to carry it on. And
Right.
so I think maybe with them, everyone gotten older, they have their own families. Time does play into that because then you have to kind of differentiate where do I want to spend my time? Do I want to take my time out to do XYZ? But I really need to be sitting here focusing on my kids and my wife, my husband, or my career, which is bad to say that because you would think that family is more important than anything. But I think when we're in that prime, that young age, we're just trying to figure it out. As we're getting older, now that we're getting older, we're like, we need to have family gatherings, y'all. Like, yeah.
It's my time. DA, devil's advocate.
Okay.
So
Oh,
you don't you don't think but you don't think the older generations had the same responsibilities as we did?
they
Because
did.
we did.
They
They had
did.
they had
But
they had
again,
families, they had kids, they had jobs, they had hobbies. You know what I'm saying?
but
So
the
what?
dynamic
How?
is the same. It's like you got to realize we have so many other layers put into our lives. Like even when it comes to work, right? We can even just talk about work. My granny and I were talking because she was like, she's like, this generation is just always so tired. She was like, I'm 81 years old. I'm not that tired. She's like, but she understands because back in the day, a lot of women weren't working, right? Let's just pivot a little bit. A lot of women weren't working. They were taking care of the household stuff. And some people, especially in our family, the women did work. But when they were off work, they were done with work. There was no such thing as taking work home. There was no such thing as staying staying late. None of that. It was like they had a 9 to 5, went home. It was totally different. They didn't have a bunch of television to watch because TV, like you had to have some money to have a television in the house, especially with cable. And then they also didn't have social media. So I think it was a lot less of a distraction in life back then than it is now. But that's just my opinion.
I do agree. I do. I think there was less distraction for sure.
Uh, oh
However,
God. We just gonna call you
again,
DJ. DJ DA.
I think for real though, like I think when I think it's just an effort thing though. Like I said, if we wanted
Yeah.
to, we could definitely plan something. We can
Mhm.
definitely do it. Like if you look at like if you brought up like the family trip that we're planning, it took us to have a conversation. And then along with one of our other cousins to be like, hey, let's actually do this. Let's
Yeah.
actually make it happen. Right. So
But you have to be
that's
a
why I'll be
proactive
saying,
person. That's the thing. Not everybody's proactive in getting things done. Because you got to realize, and this does pivot a little bit, but not everybody is born to be a leader. Follow me with this. So when it comes to that, you do have to have some type of leadership in you, right? Something that's like, I'm gonna take charge, I'm gonna go ahead and plan. Let's start, like somebody is gonna lead the conversation. And if we have a bunch of people who are not naturally born leaders, and I'm not saying the loudest person in the group, because sometimes people think they think, oh, because they're the one that's gonna talk the first, that they're the leader. But if you don't have anybody that's going to start that conversation, lead that conversation like we did, then yeah, it's going to fall to the wayside. Because even with the Christmas party, you and I technically started that. Like when we were younger, that was us getting together, and then everybody, and then because it was hosted at you guys' house, of course, you guys had to plan it, but it was really you and I always saying that we want to be with our families at the end of the day. So that's how I
yeah.
see it. Is not everybody is naturally born to stand up and be that voice that we need to carry things on.
So what I'm also I agree with that, but I'm also hearing that I think
This dead silence
that
that you're giving me though in between these is scaring me because it's like dead silence. And I think it's like a delay in my mic, but then it's like you thinking, I'm like, it doesn't make
I
it.
think too what I was gonna say, I think part of it is like you also have to be willing to put in the effort. Like
Yeah.
I do think that there is more things for us to be distracted with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also find it still but at the same time, I can also make an argument for the older generation and say that um things were maybe harder for them to do in terms
Okay.
of raising kids because there wasn't so many distractions for the kids either. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? So I
I
feel like there is a piece where, a part of it is effort and the simple want to continue things going on.
I think that's
Um,
the want. And
yeah,
some people, it might not be on the top of their priority list at times,
right.
right? So, for example, what is a tradition, or not even a tradition, because I think that we're using that word loosely, but what is something like a belief, right? A moral belief, whatever the case, that in our family, that was just, it is what it is what we believe in or what we do. But you're like, me and my wife, it ain't for us. We just don't know. So, like, what is something that you could think of?
Well, I think and I think we had mentioned this back like season one. And I
Mhm.
don't even think it's our family. I think it really in Black culture in general is like kind of like living together before marriage.
Oh, yeah.
It's typically something that is frowned upon.
Mhm.
Um, but also at the same time, I
Mhm.
think that we are kind of the generation now where it's kind of like, yeah, we we don't want that. Like we have
Right.
to know how it's going to be. Like, why would you not want to know what it
Yes.
would be like before?
I think our generation, we're the ones that are starting to ask the questions, especially for the younger millennials. Let's put it that way. Because the older millennials, I feel like they kind of just ran with whatever was told to them, right? And that's a lot of times why we have these things that older generations they did. They didn't the older millennials did not question the older generation, whereas we're at the cusp, right? Because we're like borderline Gen Z, if we want to be honest. Because Gen Z's no, no, oh, yeah,
Nah,
we are.
don't say that. Don't say that.
You like you
Nah,
said don't say that. you
Nope.
know. But we have to be honest with our we gotta be honest with ourselves. Dude, we are though. We are at the end of the millennial situation. So for
Yeah.
us, we're the ones that are starting to be like, but that doesn't make sense. Kind of like, you know, but why? But you know, and then you have the Gen Zs who are like, no, that's I did my research. This is not what we're gonna do because this is what they told. Like, think about even how people are raising their children, right? It was a thing that hold on, go ahead. But
That's
yeah,
what
there was
that's
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You go. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say sorry, my phone rang. But what I was gonna say is just how people raise their children nowadays, right? So like my granny had a way of raising all her kids. But let's say my aunt came along who just had a baby. He'll be 1 in July. They have totally different ways of raising their babies, not because she disrespects the way that my grandma raised her kids and grandkids, but because we're in a new day and age that may not work for the children nowadays. But also we have so much more knowledge as to how to put the baby to sleep. Don't put the baby. I don't know if it's taboo to put the baby on the back or the stomach yet because it keeps changing every year. But I think every year something new is coming out. So, but go ahead.
Well, no, because that was actually one of the things I was going to bring up after we got out of activities was like an
Mhm.
example of like raising children. Because like I'll be out sometimes with my mom and she'll see like a family with their baby. She'll be like, "Why they got that baby like that? Or why they do this? Or why they do that?" Right?
Right.
Um, and I think there's like this fine line because, like you said, we
Mhm.
do have access to all this research and all this information when it comes to what kids should be doing or what babies should be doing. But also at
Mhm.
the same time, there's this push and pull because for me, I look at it as I trust my mama. You get what I'm
Oh,
saying?
for sure. Yeah.
So it's like how do we and I want to say
What happened?
this for I want to save this for toward the end of the episode to get into like how do we deal with that push and pull, right?
Okay.
But just going back to that is like, yeah, there's so many ways of doing things, and they were used to doing things, and the thing is, like, it worked. Like
You
for
right.
it worked. So
Yeah.
how who are we to come back to say, oh well, this says this and this says that or whatever? Because the thing
Yeah.
is, like they figured it out naturally because they didn't have what we had, right?
Word of mouth.
So
They
word of
actually,
mouth.
yeah, they listened to the like that's they were the epitome of listening to the generation before you and following suit, not questioning. It worked. You alive. You healthy. I'm gonna do the same thing for my child. I think that's why. But things are totally different. Like back then, people were leaving their kids at home at young ages by themselves. That was okay to do. It was okay to leave your door unlocked, right? Leave your kid at home. Your child knew better. Your child was
Mhm.
not people, everybody is different. So some people were defiant, but just overall, the children respected the parents as well. Whereas nowadays, people crazy. I'm not leaving my doors unlocked, and I'm not leaving my child at home before it's probably the age of 12. Like I just don't trust society right now, like how it is.
So do you think? But here's the thing: do you think they trusted society, or do you think they didn't necessarily have a choice?
I feel like it was both. They didn't have a choice, but also people were more not friendly, but more communication. Like communication was key, right? And I do feel like it was more like a community, close knit back in the day. It didn't matter where you were from, but like people knew their neighbors, people knew the kids and the grandparents, and especially like even from the time that we're from, a lot of people are like if you would have stayed, you know, where we were at, but like our parents were friends with our friends' parents, right? Like it's kind of like a generational. I know you had to follow that for a minute because I said it back, but like it was like a generational thing. So even
Yeah.
now, I can go to my grandma's street and I know for the most part all the older generation. The newer people, I don't know who they are. So I don't trust them. I don't know you. So I think it's the like nowadays everybody's for themselves. So you can live in the neighborhood. Like, do you know your neighbors where y'all live at?
So I was about to bring that up. I've actually met the ones that live next to me and across from me.
Okay.
Um, but but I'm glad you brought that up because, like I said, when I did meet the ones across from me,
Hmm.
um, her parents have lived here for like 40 years. And so
Wow.
she was like, yeah, that's them. They do this. They've been here for this long, and they've been here for this long, and they've been here for this long. So, like you said, it's really like this community aspect.
Hmm.
But at the same time, when I was at my last place, like
Y'all didn't have
we
that.
we didn't really know the neighbors. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Hmm.
kind of like it's like why for us, like why are we okay with that? You know
Okay,
what I
well, what
mean?
part not knowing?
Yeah. Cause
Um,
cause
I think is not the fact that I don't think we think about that part. We don't think about why it's okay to not know. I think it's more so we're also consumed with our daily lives and ourselves. That we don't think about everyone else and how yo just wave, just say hello. Like in my mom and dad's neighborhood, I don't know half the folks anymore because I've moved out years ago. They kids moved out. The people may have passed away, but one thing that we do because we were one of the first people that lived in that. You remember when we moved there, there was no houses really, right? So we were like
yeah.
one of the first 5 people that stayed there. We waved, hello, how you doing? You didn't want to wave? I'm gonna keep waving at you until you finally pick up that we wave over here. So I think that's the thing. It's the initiative, still like putting forward, but not everybody's like that. I just think a lot of us nowadays are consumed with ourselves. We're too busy
So
driving home, just looking straight forward, just trying to get home from work.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like different activities and kind of the reasons why those things stop. Um,
Mhm.
we've now talked about like raising kids and like living in the community and some of those everyday life things and how things can kind of be different. Now,
Yeah.
I want to go back to what I was mentioning before. How do you navigate the well, number one, explaining that to your parents and grandparents, right? How do
Mhm.
you navigate through that? Because you had mentioned something. I think sometimes it does come. You don't want to come off as disrespectful, right?
Mhm.
Or I just thought of another example was like cooking. Cooking's another example of there's certain ways that things are or have been cooked. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying in my family and right and
Mhm.
uh
And about a black
like black
person, do not.
black people use a lot of butter. And so I've talked to my grandma about it. I'm like, I don't think you got to use that much. You know what I'm saying? But then I also don't want to offend her because then she'll say things like, well, you grew up on it,
Right.
which
You
she's
fine.
right.
Mhm.
Like which she's right. But I'm coming at it from a health perspective where it's
Yeah.
like, but I think we could do better.
Mhm.
And so how do you navigate that? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Um, I do. I think for me, it's a little different because I was always in, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I was always the kid that was different, right? Like I was into fashion. Like I've always marched to my own beat, if that makes sense. So for me, when it comes to my own I like ideas, real or whatever, when it comes to life as an adult, I don't think nobody is surprised by if I come, if I say, well, we're gonna homeschool our kids because we don't believe in sending our school, even though that's not the truth. Our kids going to public school, but I don't think anybody's surprised about that. And I think the same thing for my husband because he is different, is that no one they just be like, well, that's them. They might try. Better example, us getting married, right? We did a
Hmm.
very it was not traditional for most
Yeah.
people, right? So
Hmm.
we did have people who had said stuff to us like, why won't y'all have a ceremony? Because we don't want to have one. Why don't y'all have a big wedding? We didn't want one. Like this is still what we had was still way bigger than what we originally planned for. But then we realized we're not doing it for us. We're doing it for our family. Like we're doing it for, like we're not having it because we really like yes, I wanted it, but we're not essentially doing it for our own like pleasure. We're doing it for our loved ones because his grandfather's 92 years old. His great grandma is 91, right? So I think just being able to say respectfully, like, I understand where you're coming from, but that just doesn't fit into my lifestyle. Or a happy medium, right? Which is what we did. We didn't want all of that. So we didn't have a reception, I mean, a shower or Yeah, we didn't have that either. We didn't have a shower. We didn't have what is it called? Bachelor, bachelorette. We didn't have a ceremony, but we still gave a party because we knew our family wanted to celebrate with us. So it's a happy medium. But like again, I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question because I do me.
But do you ever feel bad or guilty at all? When, like, if there's something that you were maybe taught a certain way
Mhm.
by your family, and you do it differently now, or any of the examples you kind of brought up, like, do you ever feel bad or guilty?
No, not at all. And I don't like we can go back to the church situation. I don't feel bad because I was also raised and in a sense of as long as you're comfortable with who you are, you can go sleep with who you are. You understand your relationship with God. And this is so, and when I say my relationship with God, this isn't just about the whole religion, but this is about anything, right? So about who you are as a person. So that does talk about the traditions, your morals, and things of how you're raised. But my mom and my granny both were very much like, as long as your relationship with God is straight, y'all cool, do you like you got to answer to him at the end of the day, not us. It's so, and that goes for how you raise your kids because how you raise your kids can determine how they are as an adult, right? Or how they
Hmm.
turn out. So I never personally had no, I never, yeah, I never, I just said it. Yeah, no, we're not doing it. That's not how
Yeah.
we, yeah. But I mean, how would you navigate that?
For me, what I do a lot is say I'll tell my mom something like I did something or whatever, and I know it's different from either how she would have done it or how she did do it.
Hmm.
I'll actually try to take the time to explain to her why I
Hmm.
did it so that she understands. Um, like, oh, okay, now I see why you did it. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
and kind of same thing with my grandma a little bit to a lesser degree. Like I said, I'll just kind of try to explain to them why I'm doing it. Because I will say, for me, I do, depending on what it is, I do feel bad sometimes but not because of what I'm doing, just because
Hmm.
I don't want to come off as ungrateful, or I don't want to come off as disrespectful, or I don't want to come off as
You don't do
oh.
anything you're pretty traditional though. So that's what I'm like, so what is something that you do that isn't
Well,
how we were raised?
I'm not talking about big stuff necessarily, but
Right.
I will actually bring up like I brought it up before about like living together before
Hmm.
like marriage and stuff. It was
Yeah.
more so a the way that it happened was more so out of the like my wife at the time didn't have anywhere else to go. So you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It was more so just life in general that actually made it come together. But
Hmm.
again, that was something that I had explained to my mom and
Hmm.
my grandma as well, and they understood. You know what I mean?
Not
Um,
to cut you off, but do you think you were able to explain that to them because of the relationship that you have with your mom and your grandma?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think um, like I said, there are times where like I said, I just don't want to come off as like, oh, you didn't like the way you were raised type of
Yeah.
thing. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not it at all. It's just a
Hmm.
simple fact. Like we've said this a few times on this episode. Just, we just have access to a lot of different information now and different ways of doing things. And,
Things are
um,
different because think about they technically did the same thing. Let's be real. They technically moved in right away because but the only difference is that they were marrying people sometimes without really knowing them because they were getting married so young. Think about the people that were getting married at like 15. My grandma on my biological dad's side, she was married and had my dad at 15. I don't
oh,
know if
wow.
they right, right. And I don't know if they grew up their entire life, but like let's be real, even if you did grow up your entire life at 15, do you really know that person? You don't know yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right. Exactly. So they were in that sense like, oh, I like you. Well, I have to get married. I have to, if I got somebody pregnant, oh, I have to marry you now. So things were different then than it is now. Whereas like we're like, wait, hold on, just because I like you, and I did the do with you, don't mean I have to marry you. Let's figure this out. Like, let's question, back to questioning. Do we really like each other, or is this just a phase? Like, and I think that's why we have so many people again that, and this is, that may have not worked out. Because my grandparents, they divorced on my biological dad's side, but they had 2 kids. She was really young. So I think that's the difference. They pretty much did the same thing. It's just that they rushed it, whereas we're taking our time and we're like, well, let's move in. How do you snore? Can you cook? Can you clean? Like, ours is, we're thinking about stuff before we make big life decisions. Yeah.
I guess see that. And even going like a little bit deeper into it is like I struggle sometimes. I will say, I don't want to say struggle, but there is sometimes a little bit difficult when deciding like, okay, my mom said do it like this, right? My grandma said do this, but I've seen this. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's a for real push pull type of situation because again, like for me, like I trust them wholeheartedly. And I know that they're telling me from a place of uh
Concern and love.
well, concern, love, but also experience and
Yeah.
life of a lot of years that I haven't lived yet. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I respect where they're coming from, when they're telling me certain things. But at the same time, it's also hard to ignore certain things that I've seen too. You
Right.
know?
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Because I definitely get the push pull. Because, like, yes, I'm saying I just do me, in general. But I gotta be real. My dad and my mom, who are married, have two, not, I won't say completely different beliefs, because they believe at the core of the same things, but how to go about life, they do have totally different aspects and just visions, if that makes sense, I guess, right? So, like,
mhm,
I was raised by my mom, early ages. You know the whole story, so I'm not going to go through it. And we have our beliefs as a whole family, right? So, like, we pretty much, you and I were raised very much similar. That's our family's tradition, or not tradition, but just how we were raised and outlook of life. But then I have my dad who raised me, who he has a completely different outlook of life, right? Where
mhm,
their beliefs is like, you have to go to church, you have to go to church on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, you have to participate in this, just hardcore rules, right? But that's not how I believe, or that's not what I believe. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, you don't want to be disrespectful, because that's how I feel with my dad a lot of times, because he didn't believe in me and my now husband living together before marriage, but he had to, like you did. I explained to my dad, our situation is a little different. If I am supposed to listen to God like you want me to, like I know I'm supposed to, then you're going to have to let me find my way myself as an adult. And I think that me just having that conversation with him helped a lot. He's still going to say some stuff. He's going to be like, you know what, this is your life. But at the end of the day, he understands I don't mean any ill by doing me, right? I don't have any, like, I'm not being disrespectful or turning out everything that they taught me in life. It's just that we are two different people,
mhm,
two different walks of life. What you did in Alabama, it may not work in Chicago. I
mhm.
can't just, like, it's not the same. It's not the same. And I think, like you said, just communication, which is all it is at the end of the day of what we were talking about. Even when it came to us talking about our neighbors,
Yeah.
it's communicating.
So before we start to wrap up, are there any traditions or things that you know, rituals or whatever you would say that you and your family have done that you know that you might not be able to continue it with your kids and that bothers you? And
Me,
I'll give you an example because I know that's kind of a loaded
yeah.
question, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
For me, one of the things that I did throughout my life was go to Mississippi, you know,
Mm,
and
okay.
a lot, a lot. And I loved it. You know what I'm saying? But one of the things that, man, bothers me to my core, like
Mhm.
for real bothers me is I know that my kids kids, whatever, won't
Mhm.
have that same experience because number one, it won't feel the same as it felt to me, but also at the same time is we're just simply not going to be going because
There's
it's
nobody
changed so
to
much.
there.
People,
Yeah.
people aren't there anymore. We've had people in our family pass away. We've had people move away. Um, so that's just
That's
something
when
that,
your time to remix that. You get what I'm saying? Like you might not be able to go to Mississippi, but you can still do family trips during that same time to give your child that same experience that you had. It won't be exactly the same because of course your experience is nostalgia, older generation, just that tight bond with our great grandmother. Like that's we would never be able to get that time back, right? But you can still do that and give that same type of feeling to your children. It just won't be the same place with the same people. But it could be a tradition. Every Christmas we go on a cruise to the Bahamas. That is something as simple as that. Like it's not saying that, but I'm just saying in general, it'll give your child that like 30 years from now, your child might be sitting in the same spot saying, yeah, my dad and my mom took me to Paris once a year on spring break, some random, right? And he's like, but that's not doable for me and my wife and my kid. But I had those core memories. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, I I get what you're saying, but it ain't the same. You know what
It's
I'm
not,
saying?
well,
It's
it's not
different.
gonna be for you,
Like
but your child doesn't know that.
right,
So
which is true, and I think
that goes
that's
back to
something that
you. Yeah.
I think it's for me obviously I'm a huge like family person, and so I think
Mhm.
about it things sometimes, and I'm like, man, like they're not your our kids are not going to have the emotional attachment, the
Mhm.
knowledge that we have to people, older generation people in our
Yeah.
lives. I look at someone like like your grandmother.
Mhm.
I have 30 years ish of memories. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying? 30 years of well, obviously, a baby, you don't remember some of that stuff, but you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Um, the reality is that they're not going to have that.
No.
That's just the reality of it. Um,
But I
so the way,
mean, but think about it, they had to do that for when they were younger, right? Like they went through the same thing. They don't like we didn't get to meet um our your granddad, my grandma, we didn't get to meet their grandparents. But they have all those core memories. My mom even have memories about seeing them and stuff.
for sure. No, again, I'm not saying it's not supposed to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like
Right.
it's
No, I know.
definitely something that kind of like bothers me a little bit. Even us, you know what I'm saying? If you, well, I'm not gonna. I was gonna say if you move away, you already don't live here anyway. But the
Dang.
reality of it is you look at how much time we spent together,
Yeah.
um, and how close we are. The
Hmm.
reality of it is our kids are not going to be half as close as we are.
But
That's
we
just the
don't know
reality
that.
of it.
But to
Hmm?
think of it this way, you moved away. There was a time that you were not living here for years, but because our
Hmm.
moms made an effort for us to come down there to see y'all, or every time you were here for the summer or the summertime, like we used the time that we did have to the max, right? Because if you really look at it and look at the age that you actually left here, you were really little. We were little. And so
Yeah,
our relationship sustained even through you guys living hours away from us. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we might not, our children won't be able to experience the same type of experience that we went through, like, exactly like that. But who are we to say our kids won't be as close? Because we can decide to have kids, right? And we could be like, you know what, we're gonna make an effort, us to our couple, that once a year or 3 times a year on this, and this time, we are gonna get together and make sure our kids spend time and know their cousins. Also, you gotta realize they have FaceTime now.
that's
Like,
true. I was just
yeah,
thinking about
my
that.
aunt, I have an aunt on my biological dad's side that for most of my life have stayed in Maryland. I am I'm as close to her as I am my mother's sisters. And I was raised in the same exact house, right? But my
Yeah.
mom made it an effort to send me to Maryland once a year, or, you know, my aunt sent for me, or whenever she was in town. Or we stayed on the phone all the time. We didn't have FaceTime, but we stayed on the phone. She wrote me letters. But I think that goes full circle back to this whole conversation, as in, it takes effort, and it takes a person wanting to do it, regardless to what the tradition is, regardless of what it is that we did when we were younger. If a person does not want to do it, they won't find time to do it at the end of the day. And I feel like that's how it is with anything, not really beliefs, because that's totally different, but like when it comes to time of doing things, traditions and events and stuff. Yeah. Our kids could be best of friends. Shoot, we don't know.
No, I agree with everything that you said. So I'm not even, we wrapping up. I'm not even going to add on. I'm just going to add on to what you said, and just say, you know, it is okay to change some, and kind of create new traditions, or create new, I don't want to say routines, but basically create new traditions. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I know for some people, it
They're
might be a little
afraid.
bit harder to kind of, be afraid, or kind of to accept that. But like, it's okay, because like you said, um, you know, as the new generations come, or we have kids or whatever it is, they're not gonna have the memories that and the knowledge that we have. So they're just going to be living and getting and making their own memories, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm
We're
definitely
gonna help
glad that you, right. I'm definitely
them.
glad that you said that. For everybody listening, you know, number one, we hope you guys enjoy the episode. But what are things that you guys struggle with? How do you guys navigate conversations with, say, older generations, parents or grandparents, when it comes to doing things a little bit different? Do you feel bad? Do you feel like you're being disrespectful? How do you navigate those conversations with your family members when you choose to do something a little bit differently than the way that you were taught or raised to do?
Yeah. And also comment down below, what is something that you're just like, yeah, we did that when I was younger, or I was taught not to do this, but that's not the same for my family, like for my household. It can be something as simple as, and I'm far-fetched, you feeding your husband before you feed your children. Do you like that? It can be something as simple as that. Some people actually do in a household believe nobody else eats before the husband eats. And I don't believe that. But if there is something that you know have, comment down below, because we want to know. Because girl, we might be thinking the same thing. We could be. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, bye.
Peace.